Okay, thanks, Greg. We're all still trying to wrap our heads around what happened just days ago, and seeing footage and images of a gunshot fired at former President Donald Trump over and over again has many children asking questions. So we invited Dr. Brad Schwal, the president and CEO of the Center for Integrative Counseling and Psychology, to share his advice for parents. Good morning. It's so good to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
So I think these must be really challenging times for the parent of particularly small children. It's important that kids feel safe, and yet they're seeing all these images. How do you suggest parents remind kids they are safe?
Right. So mental health is definitely impacted by politics and then certainly trauma and very scary events. So with children, very important to know where are their sources. So young children, of course, they're not on social media. Our older children, they get their news in a very different way than we do.
Right.
But by focusing on our family, our community, we can assure our kids that they are safe. But as they see images, as they hear talk about politics, and in this case, loss of life in a very traumatic event, we do have to assure them, but also talk about what is happening and help them have better context and perspective on what's happening.
So, you said that young children aren't on social media. I have a 30-year-old, but I can imagine that there are kids, even, 3, 4 years old, who see their sister or brother's, TikTok account or whatever. How should parents look at trying to limit exposure to all this? And what are some tips on how to go about that?
For sure. So we protect our children from social media and images just like we would protecting them from a hot burner or having them look both ways before walking across the street. So by being in tune with what our kids are seeing, who is around them, what they are looking at as our kids are around them, we are creating this safe environment. And then we know, as you said, we can't completely control, particularly as kids get to elementary age. So in that case, talking about and asking, what did you see? What questions do you have? And having further conversation.
So any verbal or nonverbal cues that parents might be on the lookout for that a child might be struggling with fear?
Children, when they have an anxiety about one thing, it is displaced or projected onto other areas of their lives.
Okay.
So when we're seeing them anxious in multiple aspects of their lives, so sports, school, home, then we know that something is impacting them. Not wanting to do something they normally like to do, or having a fear that's out of proportion with what's really happening. Asking lots of questions, lots of life and death questions. So by hearing them, ask those questions. By seeing them be nervous when they weren't normally nervous, then we know to watch and look closer.
So I'm going to ask you about 3 or 4 different age groups. Let's say that you have an elementary school child right now. Suggestions for what you might want to share with them.
So we talked to our elementary kids about what's happening. In this case, there is so much surrounding the violence that did happen. So sadly, we depersonalize and we're kind of getting desensitized. So even with elementary children, 4th, 5th grade, we're talking about what we saw. We're talking about the different aspects of what happened. We empathize and talk about how so sad it is that there is loss of life and there is violence in our world. And so by showing and observing and talking about what's happening and talking about the emotion more than just the events, we're helping them.
I hear you saying don't make it clinical. Instead, talk about the feelings.
Absolutely.
Because kids operate on feelings.
Absolutely.
So you're hearing their feelings. What about when it comes to maybe like junior high, middle school, and high school students?
We ask them what they're seeing. It's so interesting thinking about the different generations and how news does impact them. So with teenagers, I think we're going into, in this case, the violence of what happened, but more about discord in society and talking about differences of opinions and why people are reacting in the way that they are. We help them by letting them guide the conversation. So with our teenagers, so important not to just tell them what they should be thinking or feeling, but ask them questions, and that connection helps really in our overall relationship.
And while not overlooking the feelings and the talk of the the moment. At the same time, you say maintain a normal routine, because that does help.
Absolutely.
It's like this
for
isn't
sure.
this. Don't scare them by thinking this is just the biggest thing that's happening right
Yes,
now.
research does show that political events do impact our well-being, as I said, and so I do believe looking at how we do manage the time spent watching what's happening really is important.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I know there are a lot of parents who appreciate what you're saying this morning. It has to be tough. Like I said, thanks.
Thank you.